Ever find yourself, like, scrolling through tons of options online, trying to pick, like, the perfect whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, get this. Today's deep dive, we're going behind the scenes of all those choices that pop up on your screen.
That's right.
Specifically, we're diving into Tkinter.
Yeah, we're talking about the Listbox Widget, a
Yeah.
tool that's honestly way more powerful than it looks at first.
Seriously, it's one of those things, right? You're clicking around online and you don't even realize it, but it's there. Those drop-down menus, or when you're picking a file from a list,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
even those little boxes that pop up sometimes, like choose the reason you're contacting us.
Right, right.
A lot of times those are powered by list boxes. And we've got a whole bunch of sources here ready to break it all down.
And the cool thing about the Listbox is it's like a core widget in Tkinter,
Okay.
which, as you know, is the library for building user interfaces with Python.
Right, right.
So whether you've been coding for years or you're just starting out, getting a handle on this widget is super useful.
For sure. All right, so let's jump right in. Our sources are diving right into the basics here. What is a list box, really?
Okay.
From what I'm seeing, it's all about, like, showing a user a list of options, but in
Yeah.
a really structured way,
Exactly. It's like a digital menu. You give the user a bunch of choices, nice and organized, and then they can pick, one thing or even multiple things from that list.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, and this is important. Don't forget that thing in programming where you start counting from 0, not 1.
Oh, right.
List boxes are the same way.
Ah, that whole zero-based indexing thing. I'll be honest, it still trips me up sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
So later on when we're, like, grabbing stuff from a list box, we got to keep that in mind. But why do we start from 0 anyway?
Well, it's a little technical,
Okay.
but basically it has to do with how computers store information using memory addresses.
Right.
And those addresses, they start at 0.
Okay.
So like the very first item on the list ends up at index 0, the second one's at index 1, and so on. It's just how computers think.
It's like learning a whole new language, right?
Right.
But once you get it, you get it. Okay, so we've got this list of options, but I'm already thinking about how it looks, I mean, we're not stuck with some boring, plain list, are we? Our sources say something about customization.
Oh, absolutely. Tinker is super flexible when it comes to styling, colors, fonts. You can even add borders.
Oh, come on
We'll dive
in.
into all that a bit later, like the full-on makeover montage. We'll get there.
All right, all right. I'm already excited. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's actually build a simple list box, see the magic happen.
Sounds good. Let's say, for example, we're making like a language learning app,
Okay.
and we want to give our users a list of languages to choose from.
So let's break it down, like line by line.
Sure.
All right, so first up, we're importing the Tkinter module.
Right.
That's our toolbox for building the interface.
Exactly.
And then we make our main window, give it a size, give it a title.
Exactly. And just so you know, that title there, that's referencing the source website.
Right.
But, in your own app, you change that to whatever, something more relevant.
Right, like choose your language adventure, something catchy like that. And then things start to get interesting. We're creating the actual list box using .tk.listbox, right?
You got it. We're basically telling Tkinter, hey, we need a list box here.
Okay.
And we're saying where it goes, the parent window, which is Mykin in this case.
Got it. And I see we're setting the height, the font. Oh, and we're even giving it a little color. Light green background. Nice.
Yeah, it's all right there in that one line,
Mm-hmm.
You customize how it looks, and you can add the content too. We're using .insert to put in each language,
Okay.
one by one.
And then tk.end makes sure those languages go to the end of the list so everything stays in order, right?
Exactly. We're telling, okay, stick this language on at the very end.
Gotcha.
And then lastly, that myLBQ.main loop that just keeps the window open and running until the user closes it out.
Perfect. So I'm picturing this right. Our user sees a window and bam, there's this nice organized list of languages all ready for them to choose.
Right.
But here's the thing. How do we actually get their selection? It's like having a menu, but no one to take your order.
You nailed it. See, just showing the list. That's only the first step. To make this list box really interactive, we got to talk about events. Those are the actions a user takes, that make something happen in our program.
Events. Okay. Sounds kind of mysterious.
Well, think of it this way. In the world of user interfaces, an event is anything the user does. Clicking, typing, moving the mouse.
Oh, okay.
So for us, the big event is when the user picks something from our list box. We need to tell our program how to react to that.
Got it. So let's say they kick a language. That's the event. how do we connect that to, like, actually whisking them away to a course on that language?
That's where binding comes in. Think of it like attaching I don't know, an invisible string
Okay.
between the list box and the part of our code that's going to handle that language selection. That string, that's our binding. It tells the program, hey, when this list box item gets selected, do this.
All right, I kind of see where you're going with this.
And the specific event we want to use here is called listbox select.
Listbox select B. Okay, got it. So our little invisible string gets tugged when they make a choice. But how do we know what they selected? Like which language they clicked on?
You're already thinking like a programmer. And don't worry, Tkinter has us covered. We've got .cur selection.
Yeah, okay.
When we use that with our list box, it tells us the index of what they picked.
Okay, so it gives us the position of the language on the list.
Right. And this is where that whole zero-based indexing thing comes back, you know. First item is at index 0, second item is at index 1, and so on.
It's all coming together now.
It is.
Open.
Uh-huh. There's that list box select again. And it looks like it's calling a function called myUpId.
Yep. That's what happens when our invisible string gets pulled, see?
Gotcha.
Inside that function, lb1.curSelection, oh, that's what swoops in and tells us which index got picked. We make sure that index is treated as a number just in case.
Right.
And then, drumroll please, we use lb1.getIndex, and that, my friend, gets us the actual value, the language itself.
Okay, so break it down for me. Let's say our user clicks on Python in that list, lb1.curSelection. Oh, that would give us 4.1, right, because Python is the second thing on the list.
That's right.
And then lb1.get1 would say, aha, they picked Python.
You got it. And now that our program knows they picked Python, we can do all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we load up a Python tutorial for them or tweak the app's settings. We could even have a little animation play.
Okay, now you're talking.
The possibilities are pretty wide open.
This little list box is way more powerful than it looked at first. We've gone from just a basic list to something the user can directly interact with, you know, actually change things.
Absolutely. And believe it or not, we're just getting started. What if, say, they want to remove a language from that list? Or what if we let them pick multiple languages at once?
Multiple languages, whoa, that's some serious learning power. But hold on, before we get ahead of ourselves, what about those oops moments?
Yeah.
Like you accidentally click the wrong thing and suddenly, boom, your favorite language is gone from the list. Can we give our users an undo button for those moments?
Oh, you mean like deleting items from the list box? Absolutely. Tkinter makes that super easy. We've got options.
Options are always good. So what can our users do if they need to fix their language list?
Okay, so picture this. We're building that language learning app, right? And a user accidentally adds, I don't know, Klingon to their list.
What if it happens?
It happens to the best of us. They could use a simple line of code, like lb1.delete2, to remove the third item on the list.
Okay.
Remember, that zero-based indexing thing is still important.
Right. So that would zap Klingon right out of there, since it's the third one on the list.
Yeah.
But what if they want to delete whatever they just selected, even if they don't remember exactly where it is?
You're good. For that, we've got tk.answer. Think of it as like a highlighter that's always on the selected item.
Oh, cool.
So lb1.delete, tk.answer, is like saying delete whatever's highlighted.
Okay, so it's like a targeted removal, no
Mhm.
extra damage.
Exactly.
And if they're like, nope, got to start over, you know, feeling indecisive, want to nuke the whole list.
Then it's lb1.delete 0tk.end time. That clears everything out from the first element, remember, index 0, all the way to the end.
Man, Tkinter is like surprisingly elegant. It's like a Swiss Army knife for building interfaces.
Yeah.
But you mentioned multiple selections earlier. That sounds kind of tricky. How do we code that?
Oh, it's actually not as bad as you might think. So by default, list boxes are set up for single selections only. But we can change that. When we create the list box, we just set select mode multiple state.
Okay.
And then, depending on their operating system, users can usually hold down Ctrl or Shift to pick a bunch of languages at once.
So they can go on a language choosing spree. But what about our code? Does lb1.curSelection still work the same way?
It does. But instead of just giving us one index, it gives us a tuple. Basically, it's like a container that holds the index of every selected item. So
Right.
if they picked Python and JavaScript, we'd get a tuple like 1, 3.
And then we could just like go through that tuple one by one and grab each language using its index.
Exactly. We could use those selections to show them relevant learning resources, adjust the app, maybe even make a personalized study plan. It's really open-ended.
Wow, now that is what I call a dynamic user experience. It's like our little list box went from a snack bar menu to like the control panel for a whole learning journey. And speaking of which, can we make it look as good as it functions? I mean, we talked about customization a bit earlier, but how far can we really go with that?
Oh, you have no idea. Get ready for a design explosion, because with Tkinter, you can change almost everything about how a list box looks. Background color, borders, fonts, you name it.
All right, no need to overwhelm everyone with every single option right now.
Right, we don't want to go full design seminar on them. But the point is, you've got the tools to make those list boxes look good. Match your app, make it visually appealing. And if you want to dive into the nitty-gritty, our sources have tons of code examples.
Perfect. And of course, we'll make sure our listeners know where to find all that. This deep dive has been amazing. We've gone from a simple list of options to dynamic user interactions. We even got into a little bit of design, all thanks to the mighty Tkinter Listbox.
And the best part is, this is just the beginning. Imagine using list boxes in your own projects. You can display data from different sources, build interactive forms, even make games with them.
The possibilities are pretty much endless. So, to all our listeners out there, we want to know, what amazing things will you create with the power of list boxes? We can't wait to see. Until next time, happy coding, everyone.